Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today is a Stashin with Stephanie day where we come out with a brand new fat quarter friendly pattern that's been inspired by this month's fabric collection that we sent out as part of our subscription club. If you're a member of our subscription club and you signed up last month, you've got this. Either it's arrived or it's coming soon in the mail. If you are not a member or you signed up this month, you can get next month's bundle by signing up today before the end of the month. So what is included in the club before we get to it is this pattern for free plus a whole bunch of other ones. So make sure you head on over there. All the patterns that we've designed with Stashin with Stephanie are free to download for our members. Plus you get exclusive discounts on my book, Fat Quarter Workshop, which features a bunch of the patterns that are now only available in the book. And we've got a new one coming out soon. I don't have all the details for you yet, but it's getting finalized this week. So that'll be coming out this fall and there'll be discounts on that as well. Plus, if you've been a member for a certain period of time, you're going to get it for free, just the price of shipping. You also get your 10 fat quarters for $29.99 a month plus shipping, and they are expertly coordinated fabrics from a brand new just released modern fabric line. So this is not bargain basement, we need to get rid of it. We order specifically for this and get everything prepped and ready to go for you. I designed a pattern that's inspired by it so that way you've got some beautiful fabric that looks great together. You have an idea of what you could do with it. You don't have to do that project. And then we get first dibs and exclusive discounts on getting additional fabric so you can turn your bundle into a kit like the one we're going to do today. So you can sign up for all of that, where it's called Stashin with Stephanie, over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. If you sign up before the end of the month, then your first bundle will ship around the 20th of next month. If you sign up after the 1st of the month, then you've got to wait sometimes 6 weeks. If you sign up on the 1st, you have to wait until the 20th of the following month. That's so that we can prepare the exact amount of bundles for the folks who've ordered them, and then you get the best opportunity to get more fabric when you get your bundle in the mail and you love it and you want to get some more. I will say I'm really in love with this month's block. It is the biggest block we have ever designed. I'm able to do a large slab, almost a twin, with 6 blocks. Yes, 6 blocks. So this is really fun. It does go together rather quickly. It feels like you're sewing a long time until you get to the blocks put together, and then it goes really fast. And we're strip piecing, so it looks super complicated, but it actually is really easy when we break it down, and we're going to do that in today's tutorial. The pattern, by the way, is called Tree Star. All right, so let's take a look at this month's fabric. It is called Summer's End by Alison Janssen for Figo Fabrics. Figo is a modern division of Northcott Fabrics, which is more well known in the traditional quilting community. We use them a lot because I love them. They come out with great designs and they work with some great artists, and hopefully we'll have an interview with the designer later on this week. All right, so this, as Summer's End, is kind of a fall theme, but I feel like it's not like reading exactly fall. Like I feel like you could have this out a lot of time during the year, because there are prints like this where we obviously have some falling leaves that are green and orange and a little bit of a taupey grayish, but they're not all like that. You definitely can make this work for many months of the year. Here we have some birds migrating, and I really love this colorway. And we're gonna make real good use of our light fabrics versus our medium and dark in this month's pattern. That way we can use them all and not have to worry about things contrasting with the background. This is a beautiful golden leaf that's just swirling around, really pretty. Now sometimes in order to supplement colors and also to sort of round out the collection a little bit, we'll add in a few of the basics as well. So this is called Lucky Charms Basic from Figo, and I thought it worked well because it's got a clover and it's very organic looking, and the colors are going to work perfectly for the center of our star blocks. All right, we've got some nice greens in here. They're really pretty. This is a great supporting print. It almost looks like a little 4-leaf clover in here, and it looks very organic in the way it's been placed, and it is really pretty. Now I think these could be pumpkins or they could be ripe tomatoes. I think either one would work. It's really fun and it ties in great with some of the browns and oranges we're gonna see in a little bit. Now, I'm not normally a fan of browns. I gotta really love a collection if we're gonna bring in some browns, but I think that this is a great combination of it because we do have a little bit of brown, but it's not a drab brown, and it is paired with almost like a peachy tan and some orange and white, and it really makes these florals come to life. Now, I have to say the whole Quilt Addicts Anonymous team was drooling over this stripe. It's got purples, it has oranges, greens, and some nice tan and some of that peachy. It's really pretty. This would make a great bias binding. We're gonna use it in a way where it looks like it's on the diagonal in the quilting in this quilt. This is another one of the basics that Figo has. It is an Elements, but I felt like the brown and especially the way some of this looks like a tree ring worked really well with this very natural collection. I just love this floral. It reminds me very much of like a fall bouquet. We've got really pretty oranges and purples and peaches, and it really just does a good job of bringing in almost all the colors in this collection into one print. We just have the green that's missing from it. I don't know about you, but last year I had a lot of fun going to a farm stand to get my fresh produce because I didn't want to get it from the grocery store with all the craziness that was going on with COVID. So I bought everything like direct from the farm stand, and I really got used to eating fruits that were fresh in season, and it's so delicious. And one of the things that we really loved having was fresh pears. They were one of my baby's favorites. We would make pear sauce, and it was one of the best things. So a nice fall pear here. And with this nice dusty purple in the background, oh, it's so pretty. Here's another one of those basics that again just rounds everything out nicely. Look how well it coordinates with that main print. So that just goes to show you when you're collecting fabric, sometimes you don't have quite enough to do what you want to do with the pattern. Like for this specific one, we needed 11 medium darks and 4 of the light prints, and we wouldn't have been able to accomplish that if we just had the colors that were in the original collection. So we added 3, and it looks fabulous and beautiful. So the importance of having a good stash of some solid basics from the fabrics collections that you like to get. So like Figo is going to have a lot of coordinates that go with its collections. It's always good to have some Figo basics on hand, but you can mix and match from the other companies as well. Here's that little leaf print again that we saw at the beginning, just this time it has that little medium purple tone in the background. This is one of my favorite colors. And we saw this in a green earlier, but now it's in a really deep purple, really pretty, really pops in the quilt design. So for this pattern, it's very important that you have a equilateral triangle ruler or 60-degree ruler that has all 3 points. Some of them have a blunt tip, so it's just cut off at the top, it's nice and straight, instead of the point. And that math is very different than one that has that point at the top. So make sure our pattern is written for one that has the point at the top. We use a Clearview triangle ruler. You can get them on our website, but if you don't have one that has the tip, you need it for this one. All right, so I'm going to point out something that's very important when you're cutting your strips. So you need to cut them into different ways depending on whether it's going to be going as a single or a strip piece set of 2. All right, this is demonstrated in the assembly instructions to go along with this. And the pattern again is called Tree Star. But if you are going to be cutting this to be going as a single diamond or as a set of 2, this is how you're going to arrange your ruler. You're going to arrange it first with one of the inch lines even with the bottom of your strip and the point even with the top of your strip, and then we're going to cut off that corner. In some patterns you need this, in this one we don't, so we can just go ahead and toss it. Now to cut a diamond, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over like this, and this is how you're going to cut your singles. So I'm lining it up so that the left edge of my diamond is even with the tip of the point that I just cut, and then the bottom tip here is even with the bottom of my strip. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a cut. All right, for all the singles, I'm just gonna keep working my way down. I don't have to flip the ruler again. I can just keep moving it down, lining up the left edge with the point I just cut, making sure my inch line is even with the top of that strip and the point is even with the bottom, and just cut my way down. All right, so you're gonna keep doing that until you've cut all the diamonds you need to from a strip. So I'm gonna go ahead and move that to the side. Now, if you are going to be cutting one that is going to go into a set of 3, instead of starting with the point at the top and the inch line on the bottom, you gotta flip it. This may not seem like, why would you need to do this, but you really do. So in this case, your inch line has to be at the top and your point has to be at the bottom. So you could walk around to the other side and cut. You could do like a weird thing like I'm about to do here and give it a cut to get it started. Or you can flip the whole strip around, and instead of starting from the left edge, you can just start from the right, and then you can cut a little more ergonomically, which is what I did for all these. So you just have to arrange it so that any strips you're going to include in your strip sets of 3, your angle is pointing down from the top left to the bottom right. Any of them that are going to be single diamonds like this one, or in a strip set of 2, needs to be going from the bottom left to the top right when you're cutting your angle. That's critically important, or your strip sets are not going to fit together right on your diamonds and you're going to be searching out more fabric. So it's easy, it's not hard. Just pay attention to the way the angles are going in this video, and then also in the diagram that goes with the cutting instructions. We tell you exactly how many strips you need to cut in both directions, so that way you are set, and as long as you follow those directions, you're going to be good to go. I'm going to show you one more thing while we have everything out. Now, we are not going to be cutting triangles from the main fabric. They're only going to come from the background, but this is how you would cut a triangle. All right, so we've got this cut off already. Let's assume it's the side. All you're going to do is you're going to line it up so that your inch line is even with the bottom and even with the edge, and then your point needs to be right at the top as well. You want to make sure that the tops are very pointy, because if they're flat at all, then it means it's going to take up extra width and your blocks aren't going to fit together quite right. All right, so now we've cut a triangle, and now we just have to keep flipping it every single time we do a triangle. So I'm just going to flip it over. This time I'm going to line it up so that my inch line is even with the top, my left side of the ruler is even with the edge I just cut, and then my point is even with the bottom. All right, so I would just keep flipping that ruler until I got all the way down to the bottom and I've cut all my triangles. Now, when you're doing this, you're gonna be doing it with the width of fabric. It is totally okay to leave that folded in half the way it was when you cut it off to do your strips in the first place. That does not matter for this project. All right, so you're gonna cut all your diamonds, both from 2 sizes of strips, and pay attention to light, medium, dark. That's super clear in the cutting instructions. Now we're gonna show you how to strip piece, which is the key to making this quilt go together really fast. All right, so I am just going to demonstrate this with a strip set of 2, but the process is the exact same when you're making strip sets of 3. Just you're going to add 1 more strip and the angle's going to be going a different way, but what you do is going to be the exact same. All right, so we're going to pick 2 that we like to go next to each other. These look really pretty because we have similar dusty purples in them and the oranges are the same, so this is going to be a real good pairing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these guys right sides together, and I'm not just going to flip it right sides together like this, because that's not going to work out. What I want to do is I want to flip it right sides together so that my point is extending just a tiny bit past that. It's going to be about 1/4 inch. You certainly don't have to mark this, but if you want to do it to kind of get the hang of it when you're getting started, then you certainly can. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to line up the 1/4 inch mark of my ruler, even with the edge of that strip set, and I'm just going to take a marking tool. This is a friction gel pen, it goes away with heat, and make that mark. So that gives me a really good indication of where this should be meeting the fabric below. Now when I stitch this and I flip it over, I'm going to have a perfect 60-degree angle going all the way up. Now, if you're off just a smidge as you get started and learn this process, no big deal. We're going to be able to trim that up, but you want it to be as close as you can so you're not wasting too much fabric, so you're able to get enough of the strip sets out of this staggered strip set. It's really cool because we're going to be able to cut diamond rows straight out of it. So instead of having to sew together hundreds of different diamonds together, we're able to sew together a handful of strip sets, cut them apart, and then and sew them back together to complete our block, so it goes a lot faster. All right, so I'm gonna line this up just like I would any other strip piecing. The only difference is, since it is kind of at an angle, we're gonna have one point coming out a little further to the side and the other is gonna be coming down. But again, I can see I've got my little pink line here that I drew, and I'm gonna start stitching right in the valley of where those two meet. And that way I'm gonna not lose anything. I'm gonna have that nice straight seam, and I'll be able to have a great strip piece unit. Now, whenever I'm strip piecing, I never pin. All I do is I kind of lift up my seams, put them together, and then just hold them gently and put my hand at the bottom and just let the feed dogs pull that up. And then when I can't go any further, I will realign it and repeat until I get to the end of the strip. Now, because we were offset at the beginning, we're also going to be offset at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and lay those right sides together and keep my fingers where the bottom strip ends first. And then when we get to about this point where I'm no longer able to hold on because it's coming down, I still want to maintain a nice straight seam allowance. So I just put my hand to the side and help guide it through. Now, you absolutely can speed up this process by chain stitching. All you're going to do is you're going to line up your next set of two, you're going to lift up your press foot, put it through, and keep on sewing. Now, I almost always press my seams open, especially when I'm doing anything with diamonds or triangles. You get a lot better join and a lot flatter seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my fabric with the wrong side up. Then I'm going to take my fingers and open that seam up and finger press it just a little bit. Now I'm going to put the tip of my iron and put it straight down that seam, and I keep 3 or 4 fingers down ahead of the seam. That kind of finger presses it open, gets it ready for that iron to go straight down. All right, this is looking great. We have a nice straight seam all the way down. If you have a little wiggle in there somewhere, it means there's a pleat on the other side. You need to take care of that because it's not going to be the right width. You'll have eaten up too much of the space. Plus, it's not going to look good when it's all done. All right, now we're going to flip it over, and I'm going to hit it with my spray mister a little bit and press it one more time from this side. This will make it super flat and have fabulous diamonds and fabulous results. All right, got a little bit of spray mist on there. It is just water in there. You could also put your favorite spray mist alternative, that's fine. And I just make sure to go straight down there, and man, it's that flat. That is fantastic. It's gonna make it perfect for when we do things next. All right, you can see I've got a nice straight line here that should be a perfect 60-degree angle. So we're gonna be able to cut our diamonds out of there next. All right, so for this next step, I like to angle my strip so that it's going on that same 60-degree angle. That way I can cut straight up and down like I'm used to. I also like to switch over to my 6x24-inch ruler for cutting because I can use the 60-degree lines on there to help make sure that I'm keeping the correct angle for my diamonds. And so we're going to show you how to do that next. So most of your 6x24-inch rulers are going to have some degree lines on them. This one is 15, 30, 45, and 60, which is the one we want to use today. So we have 60-degree diamonds, so I want to make sure that that 60-degree line is even with that seam allowance always. Sometimes you're going to get off a little bit and you need to adjust, but that is super important, super critical. It's going to make sure all your diamonds are coming together in the right way. So we always want to make sure that is on there first. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over, and I'm pretty stinking straight here. I'm going to be able to cut this to the measurement. I'm not going to say it here on camera, but it's in your pattern. You're going to cut this to that measurement, and I want to make sure that my measurement is even on the side here, which it is. All right, so once I'm even here, and then also got my 60-degree on that seam, I'm good to cut. Now, if this weren't quite straight, it would just be like overcutting anything else. You would just go a little bit beyond the measurement, and then you would flip it around and trim it up later for that first piece. But I'm pretty stinking straight on here, so we're gonna leave it be. All right, so I've got my first strip set of 2 ready to go here, and I can just keep on going up that strip from here. Again, I'm gonna just keep lining up 60-degree first and then my line here. Now I'm gonna cut off here on purpose because I'm gonna show you how to fix this if it gets off. So we're just gonna cut a funny little chunk out of here. And so now I'm gonna line it up, and you can see that when I have my 60-degree lined up, that I'm going super crooked here. So if that happens, what we're going to do is we're just going to square that up again. So I'm just going so that all of my pieces here are beyond the measurement that I need to cut to, which is right there, and that 60-degree line, that is your rock. You have got to always measure to that. That's going up that seam. So now I can give it a cut. I can flip it around, get that 60-degree line back up with that seam. This time, line up the measurement I'm supposed to cut to the left edge, and then I can cut off my extra. Now, this is an extreme example, so that way you guys can see what to do at home. Usually you just get off a teeny little bit. You don't want to get off like a significant amount, because then you might not end up with enough strips and you might be scrambling to find a little bit extra fabric. So use it judiciously. Try to waste as little fabric as possible, but everybody's going to get off a little bit. I did as I was working on it. It just depends on how straight you're pressing, which is another great reason to press seams open, because I find it stays a lot straighter when you're just going straight across than if you're constantly pressing up when you're pressing the seam under for strip units. All right, so that process is the exact same if you had a strip unit of 3, but you just have a 3rd row. So you're just going to pick one seam to line that 60-degree angle up with and just keep on going. But that's the exact same process, and now we're ready to start assembling our block. So pretty easy, right? We didn't have to cut a bunch of tiny little diamonds and sew all the tiny little diamonds back together. We sewed some long strips together, we pressed them, we cut them open, and now we're ready to rock and roll. All right, so we are making a block that is made up of 6 wedges, and there are 2 different components to that wedge. So we're going to start off with the diamond. The diamond, you can see, goes up here, down, and then of course down this. So we're going to first start by making one of these. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to arrange these right sides together. So I grabbed my pressing mat so that you can see a little better, because this is almost the same color as the table. So it's just going to be like when we were sewing those strip sets together and there was a little bit of an offset. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way because we don't need it just yet. So when we flip this over, our diamonds are going to be pointing in opposite directions. So you've got a point going this way and a point going this way. Now, if we want to make sure we're lining this up so that it is exactly a 1/4 inch seam, what you can do, just like before, is you can line up, we'll move the diamond out of the way. You can line up the edges with your 1/4 inch mark on your ruler and just make a little hash mark there, just something to give you a nice eyeball. And then that is where it should be hitting your diamond. So when we put these together, we are almost right on track there. And so you can see that right here is where we're going to be sewing in, and also right here. Now you don't have to pin this. I've done so many of these that I don't pin, I don't mark, I just line it up and go, and it usually works out just fine. Actually, like 99.9% of the time it works out just fine. But if you're just doing this for the first time, probably a good idea to do some marks just until you get the hang of it, of making sure that these points are offset just a tad bit. All right, so I'm going to start again right in that valley, and I'm just going to stitch that 1/4 inch seam. Now again, you can and should chain piece all of these. That way they just go through super fast and you're able to get through this part pretty quickly. So just like before, we're gonna press these seams open. It's really gonna make for flat joins when all those diamond points come together. Just open that up first. And this time I do a lot of lifting and pressing because we've got some seams that we don't wanna push over going the other way. All right, this time I am gonna press from the front side, but I'm not gonna spray it. I'm gonna wait till I get this entire unit done. And everything is looking fantastic. We can see we've got really straight points here, which is what you want. If you don't, then you got your offset off just a smidge. You got to figure out where you went wrong here. And then this is just super, super flat because we're pressing those seams open. There's no bulk in there whatsoever, which makes a lot of options when you go to quilt. So I am not a fan of pinning, and I'm not a fan of taking time to mark everything. But sometimes it gives you really great results if you take a little bit of extra time, and it definitely will in this case as well. You can see I've got this row of 2 sewed onto my large diamond. Now I'm ready to sew my row of 3 to it to complete that diamond unit. It's going really fast, right? But I'm going to take a little bit of time to mark a 1/4 inch seam on the wrong side of both this part here and this part, so I know exactly where to pin, and then you're going to have a really perfect join where these come together, whereas I maybe would have been off with the eyeball before, but oh my gosh, almost every single point was absolutely fabulous and perfect when I took the time to do this when I was making the quilt, so I'm going to recommend you do the same. I'm just going to flip these over so I can see where these are going to go together, and I'm just going to mark a 1/4 inch in, and I'm marking right over that seam line where those come together. You don't need to mark this side because it's not going to be joining into anything. It's just the wide open diamond there. All right, so I've got a mark here and I've got a mark there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these guys right sides together. And again, they're going to be offset just a smidge. You can see I got a point coming a little past here and a little past here. That's what you want. And you can mark that as well too if you want. I'm not going to in this case, but I am certainly going to pin here. Now, I always use a double pinning method whenever I'm pointing any triangle together. Pinning, pointing, pinning. So here's how it works, and it works with great results. I'm going to put my pin right in the middle of that seam, right where my point is. And then I'm going to eyeball it on this side and then find and make sure that I've got it in right on it on the other side, which I do, so that's great. Now I'm going to line up my tops. And with my thumb and forefinger, I'm pinching that so that it's going straight through the fabric, just straight up and down. And then I'm going to take a second pin and I'm going to pin right across where that seam join is. And the reason why I do a second pin to go across is because if I were to rock this one, I would move my top fabric forward and my bottom fabric back, and then those points won't be right on top of each other anymore, and we won't have as good of a join. But this way, it's going to hold it right in place. I've got that mark to aim for, and I'm going to have really fantastic joins. All right, so I'm just going to stitch down, and when I was doing this, what I did was I marked all of my sections, I pinned all my sections, and then I chain pieced all my sections. So it went super fast. I had, I think, 36 to do for mine because I only have 6 blocks. Again, in my quilt, it goes super fast, and so it really has gone very quickly, even though it's a large quilt that looks super complicated, but it isn't. All right, I'm going to slow down as I'm coming to that point, and I am sewing like as close as I can get to this needle. I want to almost be right on top of that needle before I pull it out because I really want those points to be right on, and the only way to make sure that happens is to sew right up to that pin. All right, so now I'm going to line up the rest of the diamond and sew down. And just like before when we were strip piecing, once we get to the point where I can't hang on anymore, I want to still make sure I've got a really accurate 1/4 inch seam all the way down. So I'm going to move my finger to the side and help maintain that 1/4 inch stitch all the way down. Again, you can chain piece to your heart's content on this. All right, just like before, we're gonna press this open. So I'm gonna start just by opening that seam, and we're gonna do a lot of lifting and pressing because we have a lot of seams here. We don't wanna flip any going the wrong way. So I'm just going to, again, open those seams up with my fingers first, lift and press my way down. And this is the big payoff. We've got a lot of seams coming together here. They are, you know, all going in weird directions, but this is a flat seam, and it looks absolutely fabulous from this side. The other benefit to pressing open is sometimes you can have a seam that's like right on, but once it eats up a little bit of fabric with pressing over, it looks like it's not anymore. But this way, I feel like it looks fabulous every time as long as you take the time to pin. Now it's at this point that I'm just going to give the whole block a little hit with my spray mister, and then I'm just going to press those seams, get it super nice and flat so that it is ready for the next step. All right, so we're going to need one of these for each wedge, 6 per block, and that is part 1 of the block that we're going to put together. Now we have some triangles, piece triangles to do. All right, so we've got our diamond. Now we're gonna make our triangles, and we're gonna have 2 per block so that way it turns into one large triangle wedge. All right, so we're gonna take one of the single diamonds that we cut at the beginning, and then one of our strip piece units of 2 2. And we're also going to take 3 of our triangles that we're going to cut from the background fabric, and we're going to layer these together. Now we're going to start just by joining our triangles to our diamonds, so that way we have 3 rows to sew together. Now, like the other one, we're only going to have an overlap on one side. So when I flip this right sides together, the points of my triangle and my diamond are going to be right on. And I'm just going to have an overlap at the bottom, where again, I'm going to start sewing that 1/4 inch to be right about where that little valley is. We can do the same for the other side. And we're going to sew these together and press them open. Alright, now we're ready to start joining these into rows. The easiest one to start with is by joining our triangle to our single diamond and our triangle here. Now, here's why I love to keep the dog ears on whenever I'm sewing these, is this little dog ear here provides a nice little lineup for the point of my triangle. So I can just line it up, make sure that the tip of this triangle is even with that dog ear, and then it's going to extend past in just the right spot down here. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that together and press it open. Alright, one thing to point out here is the tip of my diamond is now about a 1/4 inch away from the edge of the fabric. That's important. You want it to be like that because that's going to get caught up in the seam allowance. It isn't here yet because we haven't joined it to this side, but it will be as soon as we do that. Now, just like when we were joining our diamond together, I want to make sure that these 2 points match exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the other sides just like I did before, use a double pitting method, and then I'm going to stitch it through so that way we've got some really fabulous joints right here. Alright, so since this is the end of the piece triangle, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with the spray mister and give it a really good press so that I've got some really flat points that I'm ready to join to complete my wedge. Alright, so now I've got the diamond we completed earlier, plus 2 of our piece triangles, and now we're just going to join these one at a time to that diamond. And again, I'm going to mark these joins on both sides here and here, so that way I can really make sure that these points come together fabulously, just like these did, and then it looks super, super gorgeous when it's all done. Alright, so our wedge is complete, but our block is not. I need to grab 2 more of these to complete one block half. We're just going to assemble one half at a time, and they actually won't get put together until you assemble your rows, because we're going to be able to do this with no Y seams, which is fabulous because nobody likes those. So the block is so wide that I can't even fit the whole thing on the overhead camera. It is a very tall block, very tall. It's like 20 some, I think 26 inches wide by 30 tall. There's some fractions in there somewhere, but it's a big, big block. So you're able to get a lot and get a lot of payoff here. So at this point, everything goes super fast because we're just going to sew this side to this side and then this side to this side, pressing in between. And we're just going to stop at that point. We don't need to worry about the other half because that's not going to get sewn on until we are actually joining one row to another. But and at this point too, you don't have to do any of that marking because the seams are going in the same direction. So as long as the seam joint is on top of each other, it's going to be super easy. So I'm going to show you how to do that here, and then we are ready to rock and roll. All right, so I'm just going to flip these right sides together, and this is the side I'm going to be joining. So I'm going to flip it so that side is up. So here's what I mean about the seams going in the same direction. It is essentially the same thing as a seam going up and down in a regular block that has right angles. So you're just going to look at it from the top and make sure those seams are right on top of each other. And then I always pin in the right side of the seam allowance. That's because when we're sewing with our sewing machine, we're going to stitch down this way, and I can stop with my needle down in the first half of the seam allowance, pull that pin, and then keep on going. All right, so I'm going to keep on pinning, going down. Again, just making sure that those seam allowances are right on top of each other, right where those seam joints are. And I don't have that many pins to do. I just have to do my 4 little seam joints here, and we're good to go. Now, one quick tip to keep you from losing your mind is all of this that we're sewing together right now is on the bias. And I know that can be kind of a scary word in quilting, but when you learn how to work with it, it can be your best friend. So if for some reason some of your diamonds are a smidge longer than others, don't worry. We're going to be able to make that nice and flat when we press our seams down. Like you can see right here, I've got a nice little bubble here. All I'm going to do when I'm stitching is I'm just going to, once I've gotten past this bit, I'm going to pull and get that nice and flat, and no one will ever know that I eased in something once it's all done and quilted. All right, it is super critical that you're always lifting and pressing that iron back down when you get to this point, because we've got a lot of seams. We do not want to press those going the opposite way that we want them. We want perfectly flat diamonds that look fantastic. All right, so this is a diamond where I ease in a little bit. Once I flip that over and press it, you cannot even tell at all. It looks fantastic. All my points are where they should be. Looks fabulous. I'm gonna go ahead and hit that with my spray mister and just go down that seam just to get it extra good and flat. That looks good. Yeah, you cannot even tell that I eased a little extra in. It just looks great. It looks fabulous. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin to the other side. And I'm gonna give you a quick lesson on how to pin when you're joining your blocks, and then we're good. You got everything you need to know on this tutorial. All right, so here we are. We've got our half of a block finished. The other half is going to go over here, but again, we're going to not sew that together until we have all of our rows sewn together. I'm going to show you real quick how you're actually going to pin them together. I'm not going to sew it because I'm not positive I'm going to have this exactly here when I do the final layout and placement. Still working on the top myself, but it is going so fast. I'm at the point now where I'm sewing my wedges together, and it is whipping through now that I got to that point. It felt like a long time getting to that because you had to do all the diamonds, and that went fairly quickly, but then you had to do a bunch of your pieced triangles, and that seemed to take more time because there's double. But now I'm just like rocking and rolling because I don't have to mark anything. I can just sew it together and we are good to go. So super excited about this, really love it. And again, no Y seams, so that's fantastic. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to pin, and then we'll close this out. All right, so I'm gonna explain the Y seam for those of you guys who don't know it. If I were to sew these blocks together right now, I would end up with a giant hexagon, and then when I sewed them together, I would have to do a Y seam to join it to the next hexagon, which is a PIA. We don't want to do that. We want it to be nice and easy. So instead of sewing the blocks together now, what we're going to do is we're going to sew it in vertical rows first, and then the blocks are joined finally after the vertical rows are joined. So all we have to do is we have to match these points, and we're good to go. We're going to use that same 2-pinning method, but it looks a little funny when you put them together, especially on a block this large. So I'm going to go ahead and have this going this way. Then I'm going to arrange it right sides together, and you can see that I am going in way opposite directions here. It is supposed to look like this. This is the way it should look. Once it is all sewn together, it'll be a nice straight row, so you don't have to worry about that. Now I'm going to show you how I pin this. It's super simple. After we've gotten this far, you'll be a pro at it. All right, so this is absolutely fabulous. We have got 3 points coming together here. We've got a seam here, and we've got a seam here, and it makes this nice little triangle that should be about 1/4 inch away from your edge. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick my needle right where those seams are coming together. And then I'm going to find the tip of the triangle underneath, and I'm gonna put my pin right at the tip of that, again, right where everything goes together. Now I'm going to line that up before, just like we did before, where that pin is going straight up and down and pinching it between my thumb and my forefinger. And I'm going to take a second pin and I'm going to pin across again so those seams stay right on top of each other. They're held together by this pin, and then I can pull that out. And in this case, those dog ears were right on top of each other. They aren't always. Don't be upset if they don't. What's more important is that your pins are on point there. All right, so you can see we've got a point here and a dog ear. Those are going to match up nicely. You could just arrange this when you get to the sewing machine. That's fine. I'm just going to throw a pin in here so that way you guys can see what that looks like. Then we're just going to work our way down the rest of it and you are ready to go. This is another reason why I absolutely love to press these seams open, because I can see it. If it would be pressed to the side, it would be harder to see where things are, and it certainly would be hard to get a nice flat join when I press these together, because this is a lot of seams coming together. It's a lot of angles, and it would be really hard to get this to look nice and flat and fabulous on both sides if I didn't take the time to do this and press everything open. All right, guys, I've got one final tip, and it's a good one, then I'm going to leave you to it. All right, so you can see where all these seams are coming together. You can see exactly where this point is, and we know that it's right on top of the other point because we did that double pinning. Now, when you sew, you don't want to sew to the left of the point. You don't want to sew right on the point. You want to sew like one needle width to the side of that point, so just to the side of the seam allowance. Now, if you do that, when you press your seams open, your points are going to touch just perfectly when they come together, and it is going to be fantastic and you're going to love it. I do this every single time I do anything with triangles, and I get results almost every single time, and I bet you're going to love it too. So check that out. Try that tip. I bet you're going to enjoy it. All right, so thank you so much for following along with this tutorial. We'd like to challenge you every other month or so with a design that's going to stretch your skills a little bit. It's not hard, but you do kind of pay attention a little bit. Totally doable if you've ever done strip piecing before. It's just something that's a little bit different, and the results are just stunning. It looks way harder than it actually is. You saw me do this. It was strip piecing. It was some cutting of that strip piecing, and then we did some marks and pins and things together, and we're good to go. And as long as you follow along with the tips and tricks, you'll be able to have yours turn out like this too. Now, if you are a member of Stashin with Stephanie and you've received this bundle of Summer's End, you can go and grab your finishing kit. You're going to want to make sure that you get the same letter finishing kit that corresponds with the letter bundle that you got. Now, if you just joined this month, you're not going to get this bundle in the mail. We've already shipped it. We always ship bundles a month after they've shipped, so we can get you exactly the right amount of fabric. Now, one other thing, but we've got stuff for you, and we've got stuff for folks who just really love this pattern but don't want to join, and that's a full kit. Now, they go kind of fast sometimes because we've got a limited amount of fabric, but you can get a full kit so that you can make the lap size that I made. It is almost a twin, not quite. If you would like to make a full size, which is pretty large, all you need to do is buy two. Or if you're a member of the club, you can get your finishing kit and then a full kit, and you're good to go too. And then you'll have enough and you'll be good to go. And you can make it bigger if you really love it. But I think this is really fun. It looks super complicated, but it's not. And those are my favorite kind of quilts, because your friends can ooh and ah and be like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? And you will know that it challenged you a little bit, but it wasn't anywhere near as terrible as your friends maybe thought it was. And they'll think you're an amazing quilter, and you are. All right, so check out Stashin with Stephanie. Great deals, access to brand new fabric before everybody else. They get exclusive dibs on this fabric before everybody else. We never know how much is going to be left when we release to the rest of our YouTube audience and email list. It's 10 fat quarters for $29.99 a month, plus they get a free pattern inspired by the fabric, so you've got an idea of what to do with it, or you can do whatever you want with it. You get exclusive discounts and first dibs on getting additional fabric, so you can turn your bundle into a kit or just get whatever you want for whatever project you have in mind. You get access to all the previous patterns we've released for Stashin' with Stephanie, exclusive discounts for my book, Fat Quarter Workshop, which is a bestseller on Amazon, still months after it's been released, which is super exciting. Never thought I'd be able to say that. But lots of super great deals. We've got a Facebook group that you can join so you get sneak peeks and know what's up, and just lots of fun goodies. All right, so I thank you for sticking along. I'm sure this was a long tutorial because we covered a lot. We did 2 different kinds of blocks, but it's super fun. I love the results. Go check everything out over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com.